The next morning, Rudy found texts on his phone sent around midnight. He nonchalantly looked at it and yawned, but abruptly stopped and reread the sender's name. His smile spread, and he checked the time on his watch, deciding to call Jeanette after breakfast. When he did, she picked up immediately. "Urgent news, huh? What were you doing up at 2:15? "Last night, Dane came home a little after I did, so we talked for a while, and then before I went to bed, he hugged me, except that it lasted longer than hugs usually do, and then—" "Then?" Rudy said when she paused. "He lifted my chin, and his expression was different. I think he was going to kiss me. But then he stepped away and said goodnight." Rudy laughed. "What?" Jeanette asked, sounding offended by Rudy's laughter. I bet I know why he stepped back," Rudy said, still laughing a little. "Rudy, what is that supposed to—" "Oh, don't worry, you're getting to him. Maybe hugging you, or holding you, is all the heat he can take right now. Just don't worry if he withdraws." Why would he?" "Shock. Now that he knows that just the idea of kissing you could get him excited, he'll have to decide where to go from there. The next time he holds you, he'll have to have come to terms with it, whatever he decides. In the meantime, he might watch you from afar, or when he thinks you won't notice, he'll be checking you out." "Okay, so what do I do? Or is there anything I can do?" "That depends on what you want to accomplish." "What do you mean?" "Do you want him to fall in love with you, or do you want him to fall in bed with you? Can it be both?" Rudy laughed. "Well, I mean, I'd want him to love me first." "I was playing with you." "No, you weren't." "Okay, then maybe I wasn't." "You weren't, and you know it." "The truth is, Jeanette, I can only help you so far, and I'll try, but maybe a lot of waiting involved. I can't tell you what he'll be thinking. But we can keep doing these practice dates. I'll let you know when I think of something more, all right, sweetie?" "All right, then. Bye." Jeanette felt a little downhearted. Rudy had said he'd help her, but she didn't know what to think. Talking to him just made her feel as though it was going to be only that much tougher. But then she thought about what he'd said, that Dane would need to figure out how he felt about her. Well, didn't she need to also figure out what she felt for Dane? She did, of course, have all the emotions that go along with a crush, but the night before when he'd held her, and she was hugging him, it wasn't the normal goosebumps feelings she got with just looking at him or thinking of him. There was something more. They had held each other really because they'd just told each other that from then on they'd depend on each other. Yes, she felt feverish when he put his arms around her, and the feeling still lingered long after they'd said goodnight, but there was an added feeling of security there. There was also a warmth at the thought that he'd come and entrust to her things he might not tell others, that he'd be open to her. The very idea of being allowed to hold him, all of him, whenever he needed her, sent so many different emotions through her at once, she didn't know what she wanted most. After Rudy had finished talking to Jeanette, he felt an ache in his stomach and remembered that he hadn't had breakfast before talking to Jeanette, so he added more water to his bowl of oatmeal to rehydrate it as he reheated it. As he started to punch the numbers in for the microwave, Rudy began talking to himself. 2:15. You kept her awake all night, didn't you? Tossing and turning while you had only half the nerve to kiss her. I knew she wasn't ready for me to kiss her, but you? In a flash, just like that, up his almost forgotten black coffee. If you had only stayed there just a little bit longer, enough for her to understand that you want her, she could have put that excess energy keeping her going till 2:15 to good use. Love first, huh? I wonder how many times I could count. I've heard that one. Each word blowing steam out from his coffee mug, as if blowing out his own steam. Then he proceeded to lift the rim of the coffee mug closer to his lips, scalding the tip of his tongue. Then he turned around just in time to witness his oatmeal overstep the boundaries of the bowl. As he cleaned up the mess in the microwave, his phone rang. No, he commanded it. You're what got me into this in the first place. Hey, Rudy sighed calmly. Hi, was I interrupting something? Nope, just didn't hear the phone. Okay, I called for your opinion on something. Alright. Do you remember that girl I introduced you to? Jeanette? How could I forget? I thought she was your little girlfriend. I've no proof that I'm her cousin. For all I know, we're not at all related. The two of you don't quite look related. Well, last night she encouraged me to ask her grandma for me to move in with them. Rudy suddenly coughed. Are you alright? Yeah, I just... Go on then. Today's the day I'm supposed to ask if I could move in here, but I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? Rudy asked, sounding without emotion like he already knew the answer. Last night, Dane began, knowing what he'd have to say, but scared of saying it. I couldn't bring myself to confront my dad and his girlfriend. Your mom? Maybe. What troubles you about it if she is your mom? It was my babysitter. Oh, I see. There has to be more to it than that if you disapprove of her, right? It's not that I disapprove. Well then, I expected someone I could talk to tell stories about my life to, and she'd tell me about her life. I thought it would be someone I've never met before. A total stranger? Yes. Was she not a good babysitter? She was a good babysitter, but I never thought it'd be her. There's still things about you she'd be interested in learning, right? Well, yes, but now that I've found someone I could confide in, meeting with my mother, in fact, if in fact she is my mother, I could lose. Are you confiding in Jeanette? What is it you think you'd lose? Well, Jeanette. But then you'd be family. Wouldn't that mean she'd be easier to confide in then? Maybe. What do you stand to lose then? Last night, all I could do was think about how much I missed her, and she was gone at a friend's house, spending the night for the weekend. Then when I went back to her grandma's house, I knew her grandma wouldn't be up at that hour, and yet I could see light shining from one window as I approached. I thought I was imagining it at first, but Jeanette was there in the window, waiting for me. I can't tell you why, but I was so happy I could kiss her. And did you? No, but the thought didn't stop there, did it? As awful as this may sound, there she was sitting with me quietly, patiently listening. Such a little lady. About a million times my mouth was moving, my mind was on other things. I wanted to shut myself up, and yet with all her attention on me, I talked on and on, wondering how long I could make it last. How late would she be willing to stay up? For me. But when she got up to say goodnight, it wasn't enough. And before I realized what I was doing, I had her in my arms, and not once did she flinch or tense, not even when I lifted her chin, but her pulse was so fast. And then I thought she'd let me kiss her. Then I thought, no. She'd not only let me kiss her, I could lead her by hand to the guest room, and she wouldn't let go. Her pulse was still fast, as if she knew what I was thinking. Then I got scared that she'd know I didn't want to wish her a good night, and with how good it felt holding her so tight I'd have taken her right there. I got scared of my own thoughts and thought she'd be scared if she knew she'd ever talk to me again. So I let her be free before she could know. Would you have wanted her to let go of your hand? What? Well, in my fantasy, no, but in reality I'd be worried if she didn't try to reason with me why we shouldn't, or wouldn't. It could have happened. It could still. But it didn't. But if I move in, it would, I see. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. After all, you got a hold of yourself before it actually went that far, right? Here's what I suggest. Call me up if something else occurs in such a way you can hardly deal with it, and you can room with me. I think you'll get along just fine, really, though. I mean, you didn't even touch her. I wanted to, Rudy laughed, and I can tell that you've got better sense than that. Besides, those feelings might just die down after a little while. Maybe. I have to go. Thanks for everything. Bye. Bye. Those feelings might die down after a little while. If you only knew how many times I've tried to convince myself of that very thing.